Yes, I would say so. Yes, I know. Me personally, again, because I can't speak for everybody else. Everyone kind of has their own tactics. You kind of see people brace for it, and that's one thing that they have to watch. Because if you're thinking about bracing for it too hard, and like you said, you almost jerk yourself forward, that can be called a penalty. Which I don't know if anyone watched the episode the other day that a dude got hit in the top of the head then because of that. So then the striker's hand kind of had an issue. But it's and you also don't want to duck down into it because then you're going to get slapped right in the temple. Like which
Oh, yeah.
which would you rather do? And as for like I was saying before, if you can, to the best of your ability, try and time it and roll your head with it to make it as little as possible that you're absorbing, I think that's helpful. But I've also heard different things from everybody else. I definitely feel like you shouldn't go in there super loosey goosey because you're going to get your head spun. And
Yeah.
for some people, tensing up extremely hard is not a good idea either.
Yeah, because you get whiplash from it, right? Like it would
Yeah.
really fuck you up. So it's like, does anything sort of like help with the recovery? Like as far as like the striking and stuff, like a bare hand, like striking there. After like you had done this a couple of times, like how was your hand feeling afterwards? Was there like much of an impact? Like, did you notice a change in it? Like, how did it actually feel after your first competition?
Me personally, I didn't really have any issues. Like my hands were already pretty much beat up and tough from time anyhow. I'm a welder, so I'm just grabbing a whip all day long and heat treating my mitts, if you'll say. So I never really had too much of an issue. I have heard a lot of guys, their wrists hurt, or you're like, I definitely had to watch the elbow. My hand itself, I've had no
Yeah.
problems with, surprisingly. But it was more so like watching my elbow and protecting your shoulders because you're putting yourself in an exposed, area when you're throwing that, making sure it's strong. And if you do hurt it, being able to help recover it so that way you can move on in the future, I think is definitely a big deal.
And like as far as Sean O'Malley, a UFC fighter, had basically stated that he would like there's no way he would watch Powerslap. How do you feel about that considering like that he works for like the parent company of Powerslap? I mean, like, do you feel like he should be like supporting this to a certain degree, or can you see like, okay, this just isn't for him?
No, like you just said at the end right there, it's just not for him. If he doesn't want to watch it, that's fine. He was not
Mm.
out there being super critical like some other people have been. So again, and that's their opinion, and they have every right to that. It's not like Sean O'Malley just sent me a message and was like, "Bro, fuck you and the horse you rode in on for your power slap league."
100%.
Then I might have a little bit of an issue with him in particular, but no, I don't blame him at all. I can see, like you said, the purists in mixed martial arts could definitely have an issue with this, and I see why. It's
Mm.
not a technique that any of us are using that's really applicable, I would say, to anything like maybe just used to swinging an open hand for like combat jujitsu, which is even a newer thing to the world. So, again, it's just its own niche. But at the same time, I'm going to compare that to everybody's watching darts, cornhole, beer pong. Like it's on ESPN, dude. So like, why are we all complaining about this stuff? Everyone's got their own thing. If you don't like it, so be it.
Well, but it's also like, have you ever watched Pancration?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like Pancration, like back in the day, it was like open hand strikes. It's like,
Boom.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
Boss
you see
Rutan.
Buzz Rutten versus like Frank Shamrock, like just beating the shit out of each other. In reality, it's just kind of like a very well, not similar, but in a lot of ways, the striking style. You can see the incorporation because that's kind of what like Pancration really was.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just more so it's, our rule set instead of being open palm strikes for just, in general is another that's the other technicality I guess I forgot to say is they're watching the chalk things not just for cool effect. They're watching to see where your hand lands to make sure it was a clean hit because the bottom of your palm right here is supposed to be in line or below the chin of your opponent. So once they see your palm going up, so like I know a lot of people are trying to call palm strikes on some folks, which I get. It's a controversial thing. We're all learning too, like the refs are learning. Dana and Frank are learning, and everybody, Hunter, everybody else that's there watching is learning and trying to figure this stuff out. So we know we're make sure what calls are getting made. Like we've gone over meetings with the refs as rules changed, because like with time stuff or whatever else they decided to try and incorporate. But yeah, it's the bottom of the palm, it needs to be in line with the chin, no higher, because then you're slapping, your palm's hitting their ear. You don't want to go up above in the temple, obviously the eye, or you hit them in the nose or anything. And then, which you can see in my match versus John Kennedy, my first one, I was too low. So I hit him probably like from here up. And that's why he didn't move, because I couldn't get the lower part of my hand to his chin to make it, that much more powerful. So it's definitely a precision and accuracy thing that's going to play into that. Cause like that slap that I hit him with, he didn't move. Like I might as well have bonked him in the head with one of those pool noodles that we had back in the gym, because he just sat there and stared at me, and that's one of those moments where, as the guy on the other side of the table, you just kind of go, fuck, now it's my turn.
But that would be an intimidating thing, right? Like just to sit there and take it, like to give a shot to someone and then to just go, have you done? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like if you could have that mental like toughness to stand there and just eat a shot and just look at them and just smile afterwards, I feel like that would just like mentally fuck someone up like completely.
Oh yeah, I definitely know watching it, that's going to be like, oh my God, that's got to be such a mind psych. Like I knew as soon as after I hit him that I had whiffed, but obviously I'm not going to like run up to the camera and be like, I fucking missed, bull, So yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, damn, like I knew in my head I needed to make a correction, but also at that point in time, it's like, oh, again, it's my turn. I've got to make sure I've got my time limit to get set. I got to get my little noodle thing to hold on behind myself, so that way I'm set up and ready to go and in my square, because you have to make sure you tell the ref that you're set before he can tell the striker to even get what hand and what count he's going on.
So like the striker can choose the count, right? So if I go, all right, John, I'm going on 2, so I go 1, 2. So I could go like, is there a certain number that a striker can choose or use, or like can go up to?
Us, we go 1 through 3. So you're allowed a measure, but what'll happen is you have to come directly straight out with it. If you happen to curve your arm like this to come out for it, that's technically a windup. Because you could accidentally, like if you're coming just straight out to start to measure with your hand, you're not chancing accidentally striking them and having to get some sort of ruling called because you've made a mistake at that point. But yeah, you can go on 1, which a lot of people, old Slap Jesus likes to just kind of stare off into the ceiling beams and call his 1, and then it's definitely a shock factor, and that one's a wild thing in itself. But I feel like it's too opportune to miss. I feel like lining up and at least going on 2 makes it to where you can, land your hand hopefully where it needs to be. So that way, A, it's a clean hit for you to not get a penalty, and B, your opponent, you're not fucking them up, because that's not what you want to do, outside of the rule set, because that's the other thing. We as the competitors are like, yeah, like if you notice when I did get a clubbing violation, I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. Like we all know that's not what we're trying to do. And if you are, that's how you're going to get your ass beat up there in real life. You know what I'm saying? Like if you throw some sort of cheap shot shit that's not a legit call, like you're going to get fucked up.
Yeah, 100%. And like that's the fucking crazy thing. Like with these rules, it's like, because this is so new and still just starting to be regulated. Like you said, like the judges are learning, the refs are learning, as well as the athletes. And it's like you look at I was looking at how the judging and the scoring goes. Like how is it actually judged? Because I know it's on a 10-point system, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same system that they're using based off the MMA and boxing, pretty much. That's also like with the count. You know, they have an 8 and a 10 count. I think you can't hold me to that exactly, but I know for a fact they have an 8 count because that's how I ended up winning my match with John Kennedy. He had got to the 8 count, and then I got asked to walk forward, and the ref had called it at that point. But as for the point system, you know, like, say, you know, you and I are going, you hit me, I don't move like we were just talking about, and you're like, fuck, now it's my turn. So you line up, I crack you, and I drop you on your ass.
Yeah.
I win that round. I know I crack you, I don't drop you, but you wobble a little bit, or you stutter step. Then, you know, more than likely I'm going to say that's a closer round for myself. I crack you and you don't move either. I mean, that's a pick 'em for the judges at that point. You know, they could go down to facial expressions. You know, if, you know, I